and go, right, there's a much bigger picture here. And if you don't know how to hit your KPIs, well, within the organization, with the other 20 people in the meeting, this person's put his hand up and gone, I need some support here. I don't need to be buried. I don't need to be ridiculed. I don't need to be sarcastically driven to the ground. I'm actually putting my hand up and going, well, if we're all as good as we think we are, how can we all help each other?
So Mick, I've seen some examples clearly. The America's Cup was a great one. 7-1 or whatever it was down. How Oracle turned it around, and I know that it was more than just. I understand it's more than just. The team coming together. There was a lot of hands on deck there. But are there some practical examples of where you've seen high performance teams be behind and how they approached turning it around?
Yeah, very much so. A great example is, let's go back a couple of years, 1996, Kate and Megan won the first gold medal for women rowing for Australia. An incredible achievement. The previous year, they had won the World Championships. They came, into the Olympic year as red hot favourites. Stress fractures of the ribs for Megan. A lot of other issues that were going around the boat, within the boat. Australian rowing in 1995 sacked the coach in Lucerne, close to where you are now, Bill, on the spot in front of all the athletes and all the coaches. The head coach gets sent home on an airplane. There's no head coach coming into the 96 Olympics. So all that mismanagement and what was going on behind the scenes as well, very turbulent time, of trying just to focus to be an athlete. And the girls, I watched these girls get beaten again and again and again, all the way through 1996, mainly by the American crew. And it was, they would come second or third. They wouldn't be able to maybe just be able to put it all together. And then, with the support of all the people around them, and then putting their hands up and going, you know what, this is the support we really need. We're open and vulnerable. How can we still have fun and enjoy what our outcomes are of doing? They come home and they win a gold medal on 0.01 of a zero of a second, to become the first women to win a gold medal for Australian rowing. An incredible feat, but also be able to watch how these girls evolved from being right down in the gutter to learning how to accept themselves, learning how to love themselves, learning how to get back to the basic fundamentals of why they row, their purpose why they row, their vision of why they row, their values of why they row, all comes together. And when you put that all into the boat for that 6-minute piece, 2,000 meters, 300 and whatever strokes, it's an incredible, powerful thing.
Yeah, and I guess that, a lot of people that don't know, the really nitty gritty about what goes on behind the games, you think, wow, these are just amazing athletes lining up, and it's all about power. But the reality is, in a final, these are all amazing beings in each crew, to be respected. So what's really differentiating them when they've got almost all rowing in yellow or white boats and they're all physically prepared? A lot has to do with the mind. Likewise, when you're competing for a tender or you're about to go in for an exam and you've done the preparation, what's enabling you to perform at your best? I remember we talked about the 96 crew, the Awesome Foursome, and how they were repeatedly interviewed, do you think you can do this? Do you think you can do this? And I said, of course we are, we're going to have fun. And they came from behind. They just scraped into the final. They won it on a trot. And it was the belief, and they kept saying it was the belief. So where does this belief come from? It comes from really clear purpose, loving yourself, understanding, accepting, where you are and enjoying the moment. Mick, I'm just looking at the time, and I know that we want to also move into some Q&A with our lovely guests on the line. And we talked before the call about what we can do actually to be ready before and through the season. So that's the season mindset, the training mindset. Then we looked at that pre-race mindset. So it could also be the pre-pitch or going into the boardroom or the exam mindset. And then there's the race mindset itself. And then there's the fourth component, which is post-race. celebrating, accepting, looking at outcomes rather than results. So maybe could you just talk us through a little bit of that framework? We touched on the beginning about outlining what it is that we want to achieve and curating that mindset through the season. But how about that pre-race mindset, the race and the post-race? Could you talk us through what you've observed high performers habitually do?
Yes, Bill. Another great question, Bill. And I'm going to use a couple of sports here, if I may. So in the rowing fraternity, I've watched a lot of athletes already have rehearsed this pre-event ritual that they actually do, from how they carry the boat, how they put their socks on their feet, how they take their shoes off, how they put them in the gear bag. This has all been rehearsed again and again and again. And from all that rehearsing, it's just kept on bringing back incredible energies and feelings that they're in the right space at that present moment. And everything's going to be okay. So, and again, a lot of awareness of the breath, of being relaxed with the breathing. The breath is the most, is a really important factor. The breath comes into the body. It goes, the brain isn't too sure what the breath is doing, but if the breath is short, it sends a message to the brain of like, hey, something's not cool. We've got to lock down and protect ourselves. But if the breath is really long and flowing, and it's been used again and again and again with this pre-rest ritual, then the breath and the brain and the heart and the rest of the body is like, yeah, we're really long, we're relaxed, and we're ready to play. We're ready to function. We're ready to go at the start of the Olympic race and play in the water. The same advice with an exam. Same advice going into a board meeting. The breath is so important to be aware of where your breath is. And then changing over, Bill, into another sport. In the NRL, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the change room in the National Rugby League at full time and half time and beforehand of the game of 18 players that are about to go on the field that all weigh about 120 kilos, all with their own little rituals. The Polynesians will pray in the corner. Some other people will be walking around listening to AC/DC. Other people will be throwing up in the corner. But again, it's all the things that they're really used to. It's not good. It's not branded bad, but they're just very, very familiar of what they're bringing. But it all comes back massively to the breath, the power of the breath.
Yeah, so maybe I just contextualize another little story with Peter Anthony and Stephen Hawkins working with Timmy McLaren before their amazing win. And these are both lightweight athletes that moved up to the heavyweight class. And I think they won the 92 gold medal against some amazing athletes who were plus 2 meters. And these boys were less than 190 meters, 1.9 meters. And Tim McLaren had them working on, this is based on the interview with Peter Anthony, where he explained they would work on different parts of the race, getting into the boat, the warm up, going up to the start, visualizing this, coordinating it with the breath, as you said, Mick, and then coming up to the start line. What was their activation and warm-up protocol? How did they imagine it going? How did they imagine activating all the psoas and all the core and being ready to perform? And they saw themselves ready and they rehearsed that. And this was rehearsed through the high intensity pieces, which they do from time to time. In fact, they only did it 4 or 5 before the actual Olympic Games. Everything was aerobic based. They then rehearsed the start. So what was the start like? Those first 20 strokes, how would they go out? How did they imagine their context with the noise, the heat, the wind, the other crews, the umpire? What would they do with a false start? How would they prepare themselves to push, reset, go back? And this went on, right through the different components of the race that they agreed and they mentally rehearsed it. Anthony said it was tough work doing this. He said, my God, he said, all this, heebie-jeebie stuff. I didn't really believe in it at first. And then after some time, it really started to make life a lot easier. Why? Because it was becoming more autonomous. The brain was resisting less because they were rehearsing the positive outcome that they want, and they were coordinating this with the breath. Same when I've walked into the boardroom with Omar Ashraq at Medtronic, and all my colleagues are, are nervous as cats and forgetting what to do. I thought, well, is he really going to appreciate my performance of being nervous? I'm speaking to the chairman of the board. No, what he wants is the information that I've been brought into the room to deliver. How do I calm myself? I know I can calm myself with my breath. I know my material better than anyone else. All I've got to do is go in and deliver. Okay? He always asks a question that's far more intelligent than I am. At the time, I say, okay, I catch that. I can either deal with it or I can say, I don't get that. And we come back with it. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I think that's that relaxed confidence, and the breath does give that, rather than this parasympathetic, you know, nervousness. You go in with that strong control. So it's a lot about pre-race. How about through the race, Mick?
Again, Bill, yeah, it's about acceptance, and again, not branding good or bad. And let's look again at the rowing a little bit here. You know, at the 1500-meter mark, you know, your body's going to be giving you some indicators that it's actually been under some serious load. And when those indicators come to you with the lactic acid, you're not even able to speak to your crewmate because you're breathing so heavily in the boat. That you actually accept all these things that are coming to you. You don't resist them. You don't fight them. You actually accept them. You accept yourself. You support yourself. You reward yourself. And at the 1500-meter mark, in a 2000-meter race, when your body's actually really screaming at some massive indicators, all the lights are going, flashing, that you can actually accept yourself and go, wow, how good is this? That I can feel all this energy. It could be branded as pain or whatever you're feeling through the boat. And that if I wasn't feeling this pain right now, well, then I haven't really rowed to the capability that I could have rowed. So again, not pushing these things away, not pushing, the hyperventilating that you're doing before you go into an exam room, of going, right, I'm feeling this, I can accept it. What do I need to do to change this at this present moment so I can be my pure, vulnerable, authentic, fair dinkum self before I go into that exam room, before I go into that meeting room, before I take that next stroke, before I run with the ball, and take the next contact in the rugby league match or in the rugby union game, or before I hit the next tennis ball.
Yeah, so it's a lot of presence of mind, and it's a lot of being able to focus on that stroke, that feeling. I know, especially on ergometer tests, that's been a lot of pain. I know that you've worked with some sailors that have been doing ergo tests recently. Any stories that you can share about mindset going through the test, what you've helped them with?
Yeah, just recently I had an incredible opportunity to work with an up-and-coming sailor on an erg test, and again, just a couple of little things technically, just to tidy up a little bit of that, but also for him, to discover a little bit more of the journey he was about to go on, and the acceptance that he was able to accept with that, and it allowed him to be a lot more relaxed. And as well as we all do know that we're listening right now, is that to be going into any environment in a relaxed state is a lot less energy, physically and emotionally. Your body's able to function a lot freer, and it might be only that 1 or 2 millimeters on each rowing stroke on that erg when you are relaxed because your muscles are still long. It might be that extra little bit of stride that you can run when you go to hit the tennis ball. It might be you able to be able, it will be allowing you to sit down in front of that examination paper, backing yourself, mention your intentions for the day, your values, your purpose, and all your strengths, and being, again, relaxed in that environment. So nothing else is coming on what I call your radar, so you can function freely.
Yeah, just let's also want to make sure we're quite pragmatic and give some good pragmatic examples here. Mick and I are not saying that you can just turn up, sit on a machine and pull, sub 6 minutes without any preparation, and really doing, as we said before, the teams to sit down and define what is success, how do we contribute to it, and that we will do whatever it takes to make that happen. So A little story that I can give you is that Luke Wallenschläger, this gentleman, recently broke a 30-minute world record that I coached, and he then went out and broke a world record 2 days later, and incredible power and strength. And we built this up over some 12 weeks of understanding what are all the elements that it's going to take for him to be successful. We knew that we didn't have enough time to work on his technique, but he had a strong enough technique. He's over 2 meters, 117 kgs. We had to work on his nutrition. We had to work on how he prepared himself to actually deliver aerobically, because I really examined what is the metabolic cost of a 30-minute event. And he's got to be powerful, but he's got to have an aerobic motor, and he didn't have that. And Luke let go for about 8 weeks and did something that was completely counterintuitive to him. And he just did the long, slow, low intensity work for, my goodness, 8 weeks, 56 days straight. And it was doing his head in, other than the fact that he knew it was bringing him closer to his goal, because we agreed on how we would measure the outcome and what he would need to do. And he didn't leave any stone unturned, right? So down to pulling the machine apart, cleaning it, lubricating the chain, getting a guy into cockpit, having the pacing notes, scientifically looking at the data of how he would have to perform with his lactate. And what does he do? He puts another 100 meters on the world record. I didn't tell him that, or didn't invite him to break the 4-minute world record, because it would have stressed him out. So that's part of my high performance coaching of him. But after he was celebrating, I said, wow, why don't we go for the 4-minute as well? Or more to the point, why don't you go for the 4-minute the next day? And I said, but Luke, let me share something with you. I saw you were wearing shoes, tennis shoes. And that's absorbing some of the kinetic energy. And you may need just that millimeter, as Mick was saying, to do whatever it takes to break the world record. So long story short, he breaks the world record by 7 meters over 4 minutes, right? So how much did that extra kinetic energy with the tennis shoes have to come in place? So he went barefoot, I mean, these are the little details. So it's not just turning up on the day and saying, yeah, all will be okay in the exam. All will be okay, Laurent, I'll go close the deal. You and I both know it's all the back work that comes into it. And that being said, you've done all the back work. Have you done the work on your mind? Have you done the work on your breathing? Double Olympic gold medalist, 5 times world champion, Mahi Drysdale. When you hear him on the course, Craig Smith will attest to this, he sounds like a steam locomotive. It's his breath once per stroke, the big exhale at the finish. And he's sending the boat away mentally. And then he's coming up and drawing that next free breath. So there's so much that's going on here with the mental preparation and the breath work, and having a very clear intention, what you're going to do on the outset. Working that intention daily by reminding yourself. The top performers, they journal, they write down how they're going to create the day. They remind themselves of their goal and what it means, and whatever it takes means. They're very conscious of the thoughts that are coming into their head. They're keeping it clean. They're doing the gardening. They're pulling out the weeds when they have a crappy day. I think more than 55 out of the 60 people
I was listening
I've interviewed.
to a masters international masters rowing mindset piece. It's quite interesting. You sure?
Sorry, you just might want to go on mute, whoever that is. So it's curating that, and the people that I've interviewed on Faster, like I've interviewed Mick, and Mick's spoken to. What do you do? The question: what do you do when you're feeling down? They instantly put down what they're doing and they say, I go do something that makes me happy. I said, what makes you happy? I go walk the dogs, or they go for a bike ride, or they go play some tennis, or they go for a row or a kayak, or Mick, I know you go jump in and go have a swim or a surf. They acknowledge that, okay, they're very present, state of mind's not so great. What have I got? I'm going to go have some fun. I'm going to disconnect. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end. It's a great reason why my mum used to say sleep on it, because the unconscious mind will be working on it in the morning, take a decision the next morning. We just breathe into it, acknowledge it. The girls in '96, I think, head coach fired, my God, And I think Stewie Evans from Osman, our coach Mick, would say, well, it doesn't matter what happens to the coach. He's not in the boat pulling the oar, is he? You are. So get in there. Yeah, so it's comes down to a lot of conscious awareness. Mick, any more stories that you can share about some great approaches that some great people have taken from recent memory before we open it up to have a bit of a chit chat, bit of a chin wag? I see Alison's there. Hey, Alison.
Again, it's coming back to acceptance, Bill. It's about accepting. Accepting everything, accepting that the sailing boat you're sailing, your dinghy, Olympic class dinghy, needs to know how to capsize. You need to know how to do a capsize drill to get the boat upright. A lot of people would go, oh gosh, why would you want to learn how to do that? Well, that's actually going to be it could be part of the race. Not that you're intentionally trying to do that, but you need to be able to accept. When we say everything, we mean that you be able to accept yourself and everything that's going to come to you. And everything is an experience and an opportunity for you to evolve and to grow within your campaign, within your examination, with whatever it may be. So that's one angle. The other angle, Bill, is let's go back. I mean, I know you love this Jimmy Spittle America's Cup story thing of coming back from 7-1, but let's go back a little bit further there, Bill. Now we've got James Spittle racing and training on the America's Cup boat in San Francisco Harbor. The cost of the boat, millions of dollars worth of equipment. And he's out there hanging on for dear life with his red hair and freckles, driving this thing as hard as he possibly can. And he absolutely capsizes the boat. And during the capsize, the boat disintegrates. Now, Bill, he has to come off the water and meet the boss, who is Larry, who owns Oracle. And with his manila folder, sits down at the desk with his wetsuit and his hair all wet and go, hey, Larry, I pushed the envelope a bit today, and I not only just sunk the boat, I completely dismantled the whole boat on San Francisco Harbor. No one died. And the comments wasn't like, oh, James, you idiot. It was like, right, how do we still have enough time to put a winning boat together and win the America's Cup? Everyone's on the front foot. Everybody's on the front foot in that whole campaign. And sure enough, Bill, goes back to your favorite story. The boat's built under minimal time. Everyone's got the values. Everyone's got their purpose. Everyone knows why they're coming to work and be part of that campaign. And they go on and win the America's Cup. Now that's one example. And then when you look at, the girls, Kate and Megan in 96 with the rowing, everything that happened, they used that. They used that as energy for them to build and evolve and grow. So when they jumped in that boat, they were able to propel the boat and win a gold medal. So this is the real crux of it, Bill, of being able to accept what we call a setback or a tragedy or something that's not bad. Flick the branding. Get rid of the branding. You don't need the branding. You want to be able to prepare and do really, really good at whatever you want to do. The exam, the sailing boat race, your Olympic selections, being a mother, being a father, being a person to yourself. Accept everything that comes to you and be grateful. And and have gratitude that it has come to you, because if you're really aware, you will absolutely evolve and grow from that experience. If you push it away, if you suppress it, it won't happen.
Mick, 100%. And this is just not all talk. Mick has come back from a horrendous illness. Built himself back. I was nearly put in a wheelchair, and I remember that when I was airlifted to Lucerne Hospital, and they said, "Look, you're not going to row, you're not going to swim for sure." I said, "Okay, so what are the little things I need to do to get back to first sitting up, being able to walk, learn to walk again, learn to even have the confidence to get back in the boat." I broke them down into small, achievable steps. I had to accept where I was. There was no use fighting it. I had to surrender. And I had to focus on what it is I needed to do now. and it's these, it doesn't count. It's not just, wishing the magic ball to make it happen. It has to take a lot of focus, but that focus is not necessarily on more is better or harder. It's focused on the little details. And one of those little details is definitely the gratitude. You know what? I'm alive. I didn't drown. I've got a second bite at the apple. I'm in a great country with a fantastic healthcare system. I'm not in Uganda or somewhere, and I can actually make it back. I did. And I know you did too, Mick. Some great stories. I think we've got some time. We haven't got many people on the call, so feel free to take this opportunity to speak to an amazing person, Mick Miller. Amazing insights, amazing experience, a great friend of mine for many reasons. Let's go. Anyone got any questions? Just fire them off for either of us.
No question,
Ali,
Bill, but a fascinating conversation you had. I really, really enjoyed that. I mean, the similitudes and parallels between sport and business, but the way you go to the details, the mindset and everything, I think, is really, really enlightening. Very good. Thanks.
Thanks, Laurent. Ali, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm glad you guys recovered as well. So thinking about vulnerability, I had 2 accidents, one after another, 5 years ago, and it hammered my confidence. And I'm only just starting to come out of that, and I'm running my single on my own on the lake. So it can get quite stormy out there, and I'm really having a bit of a battle with this singly. With feeling scared at times because I'm on my own, and I keep thinking if I fall out and hit my head, there's nobody there, and it's stopping me reaching out. It's stopping me really going for it, and I can't breathe properly when I'm scared. So have you any advice for me to try and get over this fear and really just relax?
Yeah. If I'm able to say, hey, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can, thanks.
That's great. Hey, even just listening to what you're saying and how you're explaining this at the moment, with your words of fear, battle, loneliness, if that's what's being fed in your menu, if that's what's coming into your mind, it's turning out about 3 or 4 switches each time you mention a type of a word. When you mention the word battle, it'll turn on about 4 or 5 things in your head. So it's about reprogramming and being just a little bit aware and still accepting and supporting yourself and going, well, I mentioned that word battle in the last sentence. So if it wasn't a battle, what else could it be for you right now if it wasn't a battle?
Well, when I'm not battling and I feel really good and I just go into a zone where I'm really enjoying it and happy. I'm just happy with being out there. Okay, so that's what means. So that's what happens to you when you don't mention the word battle, and then you mention the word. When you mention the word loneliness, I mean, even though you're in a single, do you believe that every time you take a stroke that you're representing yourself and you're contributing to all the other people that have loved and supported you over all those years? Well, I haven't had much support really down here. There's not really clubs, so I'm kind of on my own with it.
Yep. So again, coming back to the menu of what you're saying to yourself is and that's just being able to stop the tape and go, you know what? No, I don't need to mention the B word. I don't need to mention the battle word anymore. I can actually mention a few other words here. And it takes 21 days to form a habit. It won't happen overnight. But if you can accept, love, and be compassionate to yourself, then it's going to have a greater opportunity, do you feel, for the other words to come in for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, please keep in touch.
Ali, I think it's just building a little bit on what Mick said. It's so important, the language that you use, we use. It's codified. You can see it on like neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. They talk a lot about it. because it goes into that unconscious mind. So be aware of how you speak to yourself, and that may help. Okay, it builds up those little elements. I remember going back to Race the Lake where my accident happened, and I took a lot of baby steps. I remember traveling back there when no one was there, just looking at it, then going back again and getting in a boat when no one was there and having a little paddle. And fair income, I was just, you know, and it's being accepting enough to say that's okay, and it's quite normal. And then how do I layer on it? But I think, you know, Mick's got some great strategies that you might want to talk about later with him. I'll send you his contact details, and you can just have that conversation rather out in public. But it takes some time, but you know, you've got to know which direction to head in. Otherwise, the same time you spend over those 21 days, you could be going completely the wrong way, and you don't want that either. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Good on you.
Can we mention one more thing there? Can we mention one more thing there, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, rewarding yourself on a smaller scale of how you're going, and when I mention reward, a really simple program, a really simple system I'd love to share with you is there's two great things you've done in the boat for the last 3 or 4 minutes. And you tell yourself out loud, these are the two great things I've done in the boat. I've sat in the boat. I haven't fallen out of the boat. You know what? And I'm rowing. And then one thing I'd like to improve about myself. Why? For the next couple of minutes. Oh, I'd like to continue this. I'd like to relax my breathing a little bit. Okay. Then you go for another 4 or 5 minutes, and you're rowing along, and you ask yourself. You might even stop the boat and go, you know, what are the two great things I'm doing with myself here at the moment? Oh, I'm out in nature, and I still haven't fallen out of the boat.
Okay.
How good is this? And one more thing I'd like to improve about myself for the next 3 or 4 minutes. So I'd like to improve a little bit more flow with my stroke and my breath. So no one's telling you what to do. You're actually allowing yourself to evolve and grow by the questions that you ask of yourself.
Thank you.
Small increments.
Mate, that's brilliant. Brilliant advice, Mick. I've got a question here from Craig. What's your advice from a coaching perspective when working with teenage athletes who have very high levels of anxiety around racing and performance expectations? What could be some of the strategies that you would use in that situation, Mick? So that's anxiety around performance and racing. I think it's not just teenagers either. I have it too.
Well, yeah, again, what an incredible opportunity to really grow and evolve as a person, to allow those feelings of anxiety and anticipation and nervousness that all come into you, and where you can actually be open and vulnerable enough to go, right, this is what I'm feeling. I'm literally shitting myself here on the starting line. I'm hyperventilating on the starting line. I'm trying to get my little sailing boat on the starting line so I can get a free start. And you know what? The Russians and the Germans won't let me in. And, you know, my breathing's all out of control. To be able to accept that and go, right, from this, what can I learn from this? What an incredible experience to be in this environment right now. And for me, addressing it and not suppressing it, how can I grow from this? And that.
Okay, how about strategies around performance and anxiety? I'm guessing, Craig, that you're saying that there may be high expectations to do a great performance. Expectations, anxiety around performance. Any thoughts?
Yeah. An expectation, if it isn't met, the byproduct is a product called resentment. So to be able to sit down with your athletes and get them to journal what anxiety means to them, what an expectation is to them, so they can actually really embrace the whole thing. When they row the boat, they're not just half hanging onto the oar, they're fully hanging onto the oars. They're fully owning the oars when they row the boat. This is a great opportunity to fully own what you're feeling with the expectation, with the resentment, with this high anxiety that you're having. So you can own it, and the anxiety and the expectations don't own you. You own the expectations and the anxiety.
Yeah, it's great. That is a great point. We've got to thank you, Mick, and Craig. Just let me know if that addresses your point. We have another question here from Alex. Mick, you mentioned focusing on your breath quite a bit. Is there a particular way of breathing that you'd suggest to maximize performance?
Oh, very much so. Most of us don't even know how to breathe. Bill, no one came to me when I came out of hospital and said, "Righty, Mick, this is how you're going to learn how to breathe." It's only been in the last couple of years people have come to me and indicated and showed me how to breathe. There's many, many ways of learning how to breathe. To diffuse everything, to increase things, but more to actually allow the relaxation and for you to be in your natural, pure state so you can perform in the running where your muscles are long and relaxed, not shortening by 1 or 2 millimeters or half a millimeter. So each breath that you're delivering is delivering the same message to your whole body so you can perform. There's a number of great breathing techniques that are on YouTube with a number of videos. There's a really great guy I do a lot of work with in Sydney, a guy called Mitchell Woods, who is right into the breathing and breath work in a number of other areas. And again, if you wish to contact me, I'm happy to pass on his information to you.
Yeah, and Alex, next week we've got the same thing with Heath Podmore. And I know Heath works with the Newcastle Knights, Mick, just on breathing. But Heath comes from a big wave surfing background. So this is my relentless pursuit for excellence. Mick knows a hell of a lot about breathing. But I also know a couple of boys that work with the big wave surfers, and if they mess up the breathing, then they have a critical problem, don't they? So some instant things that you can do straight away is breathing through the nose. And Mick, correct me if I'm wrong here, mate, because you've done a lot of work on this as well. But I do a lot of focused breathing through the nose and deep into the belly before expanding into the chest, and with a very relaxed exhale through the back of the throat. So it's not a, okay? So it's very much through the nasal dilation through the nose to really make sure that you're optimizing the breath work. The other thing with regards to relaxing is a sequence of breathing, which is quite simple and to do. Very easy protocol. Breathe in for 3 or 4, hold for 3 or 4, exhale for 3 or 4, hold for 3 or 4, inhale for 3 or 4, and just repeat. And you can do that for 5-10 minutes. And it helps you to get that parasympathetic nervous system to really just quieten off, backen off. I also like to then take that time to reflect on the breath, make sure I'm focusing on the breath and not letting the distraction. And that is harder than it sounds. And often a good pragmatic tip is I count my breath. So I'm counting it. I don't use a device, a watch or a stopwatch, because then it keeps my focus on what I'm doing and being very present. Okay. Nasal breathing is very important. I think if you watch some of the old boxing movies or the recent MMA fighters, Muhammad Ali used to say, as soon as I see them breathing through the mouth, I know I've got him. So it was that much, and we're talking that's back in the 60s and 70s. So it's not rocket science. Peter Snell, the great runner, said that Arthur Lydiard used to just have them all breathing through the nose. Yeah, it's a great aerobic cue too, isn't it, Mick? You know that when you're going beyond aerobic, when you can't continue to breathe in and out through the nose. We're just about there. I think we've got time for one more question or comment. Mick, you're going to say something? Sorry.
Oh, Bill, the single nostril breathing is also really important as well. It brings in, it's got some serious horsepower. The other breathing, Bill, is not, when you're competing, when you're running, when you're sailing, when you're rowing, when you're playing tennis, when you go into that boardroom meeting, when you're doing the exam, you're not there's no conditions. You don't want a condition on you. You want to just be able to freely be yourself and do what you're really, really great at, what you've trained for. So again, to defuse this conditioning of breathing, where you're just allowing the breath to come in, you're connecting it with not just your belly, but you're connecting it with your heart, and you're really, really feeling every single bit of it that comes into you and releases out of you. Where again, no guidelines, no conditions. You're just allowing this to organically, naturally happen to you. Is in an event, rowing, running, sailing, tennis, going to that boardroom when you know your heart's beating, and you know you're aware your heart's beating, but you've got the control by your breath to defuse and be your natural.
Great point, Mick. There's a lot of things we can survive without, but not without your breath. Thank you, everyone. If you want to get in touch with Mick or myself, just ping me an email or send me a DM from Facebook. I know you've all got my details. Craig, I think Annie, you know Mick, Alex, just send me and I can help put you together. I put the recording on, but only after 10 minutes in because I was so into what I was doing. But we've got a good capture of most of this. So I'll check in with each of you that you're comfortable with this being shared. If not, we won't. But just in case you wanted to refer to it again, you can later on. Okay. So thanks very much. Thank you, Mick. Thank you for your time. Ali, Alex, Annie, Craig, Laurent. I wish you a very nice evening if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Take care. All the best. Thanks, Mick.
Thank you again.